Hey everybody, welcome to the show Board Game Reviews. This video is part of a series of videos looking at Nemo's War. Now, Nemo's War is a solo game. This is actually a game that can play cooperative up to 4 players, but at its heart and at soul, this is a solo playing game. And what it is this is the theme of a game where you are Captain Nemo taking control of the Nautilus and you're sailing across the 7 seas, going on grand adventures and trying to survive for a full year going through all these grand adventures. And you're hoping that you make enough of a dent on whatever motive you're deciding to go after to make a difference in the world. Whether it's you're going for exploration, whether you're going for science, whether you're going for war, or you're going for anti-imperialism, you're trying to do good enough of those various different things to make a dent, make a difference, leave a mark on the world and leave your mark in history. Fail to do so and you're going to suffer defeat. Manage to score enough victory points, you're going to get varying levels of victory all the way up to the grandest triumph where you get the grand entry. And the really cool thing is all this stuff is listed in the epilogue book where it gives you various different victory conditions or minimum levels of victory conditions and give you amounts of victory points. Now this game has really done a great, fantastic job of taking the classic novel 20,000 Leagues Underneath the Sea and thrown it into a board game that creates a lot of variety, a lot of gameplay, and a lot of mechanics, evolving mechanics that we've seen before, but creating in such a way that the mechanics don't feel like the same old tried mechanics that we've done thousands and thousands of times, just with a brand new theme ironed over it. And I'm not saying the theme is ironed on here because the theme is definitely there and it creates this really cool, this really intricate game that's designed to create this really interesting thematic adventure style game while you're doing the mechanics that we've seen before. So the mechanics that we've seen before is games where we have tracks that we're trying to avoid these tracks going all the way down to negative, or games where we're trying to prevent the board from being completely filled up. A lot of solo, a lot of cooperative games use this mechanics, whether it's a deck of cards where you need to go through, complete a task before the deck of cards is emptied, or whether you need to get a task done before a certain track reaches 0, or you need to make a certain task that needs to be completed before a certain board gets filled up. We've seen these mechanics before in many different games. What they've done with Nemo's War is they managed to put all those mechanics into a game in a very strong thematic version of the storyline that feels like the story itself, while marrying very good mechanics, very strong theme, and very strong challenges to bring together this game that's really quite engrossing and quite enjoyable. So in this game, you are constantly fighting many different resources, and you never have enough resources to complete these tasks. The resources you're trying to control is your notoriety, because if your notoriety gets too high, you're going to lose the game based on the motive you picked. You're trying to prevent imperialism by making sure that the oceans are completely filled up with ships. If that ever happens, then Nemo and his crew are going to lose. You're also trying to make sure that Nemo doesn't fall into despair, your crew doesn't get obliterated, or the ship itself gets sunk down to the bottom of the ocean. So you have a lot of challenges in this game stopping you from winning the game. And adding on to the challenges, if any of these victory conditions or these failure conditions happen to happen, you're going to actually score 0 and you're not even be able to score the game. So that adds an extra layer of depth and theme and also challenging the game, making the game actually a really challenging game. If you manage to survive through this entire deck of adventure cards, well, usually anywhere from about 27 to 31 adventure cards, if you manage to get through all those adventure cards, then you're going to score yourself based on how well you did manage to stay within these constraints of all these challenges of these various tracks, these ships that are going out here on this board, your notoriety, and all these things that are doing their best to make sure you fail. But it's not just about surviving to the end of the game. No, like a lot of these cooperative or games where you're working as a group, it's not about surviving to the end and go, whew, we made it, guys, we made it to the end. It didn't matter about that last decision we made because we made it to the end, that's all that mattered. This game doesn't do that. Just because you get to the end doesn't mean that things are going to go your way, because even if you get to the end, and you see this in my playthrough, you can still suffer defeat. So defeat can happen to you even if you make it to the end of the game. So this game has created a really interesting way to bring in all of these mechanics with a really strong mechanic that makes it so the game is really, really challenging. I will probably rate this game in the challenge level pretty close to Robinson Crusoe, which is another game that I enjoy immensely. And if I had to compare these two, I'd have a hard time picking out which one of these two games I actually like more. If we're talking about a pure solo experience, I would probably pick this game over Robinson Crusoe as one of my favorite games, just because in Robinson Crusoe you're required to control multiple people and multiple things and different things like that, while this game, it feels like it really marries that solo mechanic very, very well, because you are Nemo. You are Captain Nemo captaining your ship. All your decisions matter just for yourself. So on a purely solo aspect, I would probably pick this game over Robinson Crusoe. If we're talking about with multiple players, I'd probably still lean on Robinson Crusoe because it's one of my all-time favorite cooperative games. I think it's a brilliant game. But this game itself, Nemo's War, is actually fantastic, absolutely really enjoyable cooperative game, but really at its heart, it's a wonderful solo game. So what have they brought in the game that's actually new to the mechanics that brings out things that we haven't seen before? Well, the things it's done is a lot to kind of go back and talk about other games again. What a lot of these games do that offer a solo or a cooperative or a gameplay mode is a lot of times with these games you are fighting a deck of cards, and as this deck of cards runs out, things are going to various happen. What I don't like about a lot of those cooperative games is the ability to card count. Now in this game you can't really card count because it's not about trying to avoid an end of a deck happening, which we know we've seen in games such as Defenders of the Realm, or I'm sorry, not Defenders of the Realm, but Pandemic, or any of those games like that where once the deck runs out, you basically lose the game. No, you're trying to actually get to the end of the game while you're trying to fight all these things, but what I enjoy the fact the most is while I'm not a huge fan of dice, because dice are not always my friend, I actually like how the dice work on this game because they stop me from doing one thing I don't like about those other games. I cannot card count in this game. I know in some games, so cooperative games, as you play this game, sometimes cards are going to come out there and you can start card counting and you can start using that to hedge your bets. You can sit there and go, well, I know I just added these certain cards in the deck, or this one event just started to happen, so I basically have a 20% chance of doing this thing successfully. Or if I do this other thing, I have about a 40% chance of this thing happening or succeeding. So what they've done here is they've created this mechanic where you have these dice which can actually judge whether you succeed or whether you fail in this game. And I really, really enjoyed it. Now I know it looks like I'm getting frustrated many times if you watch my playthrough video, but I'm getting frustrated in a very, very good way. Sure, the dice were not in my favor. Sure, the dice were working against me. And sure, that may be something that may make you hesitate when you look at this game. You may be thinking to yourself, well, gosh, everything he did was really based on the dice. Well, yes and no, not really, because as you play the game more and as you get better and get smarter at the game, you start realizing that's not really about the dice. The dice are actually set on a very generic average if you think about everything, because if you look at most of the success rolls, a 7 or higher is actually pretty much a success. Basically means you're going to succeed in everything you do pretty much 50% of the time, especially if you start bargaining in some of these resources. The trick here is you need to decide on what resources you want to bargain with, which resources you want to exert, and which different bonuses you want to start sacrificing and risking in an effort to make sure you succeed. So it's less about rolling the dice and it's more about hedging your bets, controlling the odds, making the odds go in your favor, and then when things go really, really south, you need to decide if you want to start using one of your 6 bonus resources that can help you succeed when everything is working against you. And your decisions you make earlier in the game can help you much more further as you go later in the game. A really good example could be the treasure tokens. The more of these treasure tokens you get, the greater chances you're going to start getting some of these reroll tokens. Yes, you can sacrifice those to get rerolls, or you can keep them for the end of the game to continue to get extra victory points. And that's also another thing I really like about this game. A lot of things are giving you constant questions and constant decisions in the way you're going to play the game. You're going to see a lot of cards that come up like these cards that say play on them. Of course, that's a bad one to pick because that's a finale card. But let's look at a generic play card right here. Now these play cards are really interesting because they cause you to make constant decisions in these games. Because the way these cards are going to work out is they're going to give you, sorry, keep card is what I meant. What these cards are going to do as these keep cards come out is they're going to give you a decision. They're going to say, hey, if you discard this card, you're going to get this nice bonus, but then you're going to lose out on those victory points. And remember, it doesn't matter how well you manage to get through the adventure deck, it's all a matter of how many victory points you score after getting through the adventure deck. So you need to weigh these and sit there and go, okay, I could really, really use some crew right now, and if I get some crew, I might get some extra victory points, and I may not even lose by having my crew defeated, which can be a loss condition for me. But if I get rid of this card, I'm going to lose out on victory points. So now I have this decision. Is it worth losing the victory points to guarantee a different success or a better success or even eventually getting better victory points? So this game is forcing you to make a lot of decisions constantly based on the way the cards are going to come out. Yes, based on the roll of the dice, but again, the dice are not as big of a negative as it may seem. And again, when I first started playing this game, the very first time I played a game, my luck with dice happened to rear its ugly head. And I went through the game going, wow, everything that's happened is basically because the way the dice are coming out. So I kind of got a little frustrated with the game the very first time I played it. And then, just on a lark, because I like to try to break a game before I review a game, I went back through the game and I played the game by allowing myself to get a couple extra bonus rolls. I just basically said, hey, I'm going to keep take an extra couple bonus rolls throughout the game. And I went through the game and I still got my butt kicked again. I was like, oh, well, shoot, if I got my butt kicked again and the dice weren't really affecting it, what was really going on? What was going on is my decision tree, and the decisions I was making was not the best decisions for the game. So I played the game more and more and more, and I started realizing that the dice aren't really the negative. The negative is the decisions you make, the resources you risk, and making your decision, deciding like, hey, is this really a card I have to have? Is this really a resource I have to have? Is this really a decision I need to be making right now? Because this is a game that's all about the gameplay. It's not about its individual engine components. It's about every single component for the engine brought together again in an effort to make it through to the end, just to score those grand victory points to get that great ending at the end of the game. So I think the game has done a really brilliant job of bringing together a whole bunch of mechanics we've seen, tracks we need to watch out for, a board that we need to make sure doesn't fill up, watching our notoriety, watching these different things, while hedging our bets with dice, while we're having a lot of thematic text, while we're having a lot of grand adventures, and a lot of potential replay that comes with this game, because I haven't even covered this yet, but this game actually offers a lot amount of replay on this. There's a huge amount of replay. The very first time you play the game, I suggest you play this as an explorer because it's nice, balanced, even keel, and allows you to start experiencing the game. But as you play the game more, you're going to start picking more and more of these motives, and you're going to see that the motives are going to change the way you play the game. The way you play the game with anti-imperialism is different than the way you play with war, which is different than the way you play with explore, and it's different from the way you play with science. For example, if you're playing for a science win, you have to control that notoriety check. You just have to be absolutely brutal about how well you're controlling the notoriety, because it is so easy to get up to 26 notoriety, and with science, that's a loss. It doesn't matter how well you do on anything else. If your notoriety gets to 26, game over on science. Whereas opposed to playing a war game, you can go all the way up to 51 on the notoriety, but then you have to start risking more of these dice, creating more of the ships, and you have to go to war, but you still have to control that notoriety check. You have to go out there and start blowing up a lot of ships, keeping the sea lanes empty while watching notoriety continually starting to climb while you're building up your Nautilus, while you're doing all these upgrades on your ship, getting the salvage, which is going to allow you to start getting a lot more of the upgrades. So just the very beginning of the game with the motives that you pick is going to influence how you're going to play the game, creating a large amount of replay right there. Add into the fact that the game comes with over 50 of these adventure cards. You're never going to use every one of these adventure cards every time you play the game. Most likely you're going to use maybe about 25 to maybe 30 of these adventure cards, which still means you have about 20 adventure cards which can be cycling through the game every time you play it, again adding to the amount of replay you have with the game. Add in the fact that yeah, you do have a little bit of the randomness of the dice, but it does allow you to have a lot of different strategies, and you're going to watch everything how it's going, and your decisions are going to be based on what is evolving through the game versus just what is happening with the randomness of luck. Now in my gameplay video, you hear me hem and haw quite a few times where I was saying, I know I'm making the dumb decision right here because I played the game enough to know what the good decisions are, but I was making some of those decisions just so you can see how the game plays. I pretty much, looking at all my decisions, I can go back and look and see multiple times where I could have made multiple different decisions, and I could have turned this into probably a 200-point victory point game pretty easily just by playing smarter. So the game does reward experience. It rewards you for learning the game, learning the mechanics, and playing smart. Hedging your bets, working with the statistics you have, working with the decisions you have, and working with everything coming out with just the perfect enough randomness to make it sure that you can enjoy the game and have a lot of replay potential every time you play this game. Now this game, talking about the components really quick, this game has a phenomenal level of component quality on this, especially when you consider the fact that this game is $50. You can go to Amazon right now and get this game for $50. I have not had this much enjoyment out of a game for $50 in a long time. Most of the games these days are getting close to $80, $90, or $100 for a good gameplay experience. You're getting some fantastic gameplay experience for $50, and it's a wonderful level of component quality. Ian O'Toole needs to be given thousands and thousands of thumbs up just for how well he did in designing this board. It is very easy after you play this game one time and one time only after reading the rule book to not need the rule book ever again. There are so many charts, so many tables, and so many descriptors of the rules all over the board that you never ever need to pull out the rule book ever again. And that says so many things about the design of the game. There are so many games that I own that I play 2, 3, 4 times where I go, hold on everybody. Well, I guess with a solo game I don't need to tell people to hold on, but there are so many times where I have to pull out the rule book, look at the rule book and go, okay, no, okay. No, that's not in this game. Every time I play this game now, I can just simply go, oh wait, hold on, it's been a while since I played the game, blah, blah, blah. Yep, okay, that's a success, or nope, that's a failure, or everything like that. The rules for everything are laid out on this game. There's a wonderful arrangement to the game. There's a place for everything on the board. They could have been very chintzy and everything like that and made the entire board this little map right here with these little tracks, but no, they did a wonderful job creating this wonderful board that has all these charts, has places for all of your cards, little graphs everywhere, and just wonderful components, and they did a phenomenal job with the components. The artwork is great. It's evocative of the theme, the time, and everything that's going on, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, you could grouse about how the oceans don't quite match up. It's a little bit odd, and that's why I know sometimes when I'm playing the game I have to go, which ocean is that? Oh yeah, okay. Because it's a little bit creative design here, but it really fits the game, and the game is just done so phenomenally. There's a wonderful amount of ability with the different components here with the different motives for the scoring. That's done very perfectly. The turn overview, places for your treasures, a place to track your score. You can even track the score as you're playing the game. I think it's a little masochistic, so I wouldn't do it. But you can track your score as you're playing, even if you want to. And even add on to this the fact that there is even actually a really good insert in the game. The insert comes with component locations for everything. You have your cards, more than enough room if you want to sleeve your cards. All the ship components fit here very, very nicely. There's a slot for every one of the ship components. Black ships, and then it goes with blue ships, green ships, and then your different ships, your 7 ships right here. And everything goes right here, your little component tray right here, your miniature for the Nautilus. All these things are done extremely well. And all this is for only $50. I mean, $50 for this game is a wonderful steal for all the artwork and the wonderful things that comes in this game. You have a game that has wonderful presentation, wonderful artwork, and a wonderful value built in this box. It's just hard to argue with the amount of value that comes in this box. Now, we do have to have a couple different negatives on this game, and it's not really a negative, but it's something you do need to mention this game. This game, as heart and soul, is purely a solo game. Yes, there are rules in the game that do allow you to play the game as a co-op. I didn't really enjoy it as a co-op game. I am not saying it's bad. I just feel that it kind of ruins the theme when you're kind of each of you fighting, taking over control of the ship. It works, the design works, the mechanics are there and everything is like that, but it's not a game that I would ever run to as my first decision to play as a multiplayer game. This game really, to me, feels strongly as best as a solo one-player game, and at that mark, it sails high in the sky. It succeeds phenomenally. This is a wonderful solo experience. Yes, you can play with other players, and actually I wouldn't mind playing with other players more often. It's just not a game that would be my first go-to choice as a multiplayer game, especially as a 4-player game. And I would actually recommend, if you're going to play this as a multiplayer game, there's actually rules in the back of the rule book to play as a full cooperative game, or you can play as a semi-competitive rules, and that's actually the way I prefer it when it comes to the multiplayer game. And again, that's just me, that's just my play style. The game doesn't fail as a multiplayer game. I just think at its heart and its soul, it's best as a solo game. So the bottom line here is, did I like the game? I enjoyed the game phenomenally. I think it's a brilliant design, wonderful artwork, wonderful gameplay, a fantastic game, then one that I'm very, very happy to have in my collection. It's a wonderful price, wonderful deal. Everything about this game is absolutely fantastic. It's very challenging, very brutal, lots of replay potential, and this is a game you're not going to get bored of. You're going to get 5, 10, multiple more plays before you're going to even think about wanting to add expansions to your collection. And yes, there's little micro expansions you can get, and there's even a big expansion that's supposed to be coming eventually. I can't wait for that to come out. Again, the only really 2 things I can say that you may want to be cautious about is this game is not as its best as a multiplayer, and the dice themselves can be just a little bit random, a little bit brutal, and can be a little bit unfriendly for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf-board-game-reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. Be sure to answer your questions as quickly as I can. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button. As always, thanks for watching.